Hello YouTube and welcome to this month's Horror Talk. And wait a minute. Yikes! I'm naked!
Oh, I must have been having a nightmare. Well, time to get this month's Horror Talk underway.
Welcome to my world, bitch. I know the look isn't complete without the hook, without the bladed glove. I feel like I've forgotten something else. I can't think what. Oh well, it'll come to me. Stick around.
Dream, 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 dream when I want you in my arms when I want you and all your charms whenever I want you. All I have to do is dream, 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 dream.
Hello there YouTube and welcome to a horror talk from me, Random Ross. So, this month's discussion is a Nightmare on Elm Street franchise, as voted by the Horror Amino Comunity. Now, I was going to do two this month, but it seems that the whole community of Horror Amino wanted to voted for the same topic I voted for, and that was A Nightmare on Elm Street. If you don't know what a Horror Amino is, it's this social app on an Amino app. You can join various communities, not just horror, but basically any community of your favourite interest. Even create your own community. I will leave a link for that in the description if I can. But yes, A Nightmare on Elm Street franchise. So this is a franchise that has, gone for, that has been phenomenal. It's been a cult hit. It's become iconic. Basically, if you are a horror fan and you haven't heard of A Nightmare on Elm Street, where the hell have you been? It gave us one of the most iconic horror villains in history, and that is Frederick Charles Kruger. And yeah, it has had, this series has had over 5 sequels and a remake and a crossover movie, which we'll get into discussing right now. So here we go, the history and the discussion of A Nightmare on Elm Street. So it all started back in 1984. Already made a name for himself with Last House on the Left, The Hills Have Eyes, and many other horrors under his belt. Horror master Wes Craven gave us A Nightmare on Elm Street, written and directed by the great man himself, Wes Craven. The film was about a group of teenagers that had nightmares of a man with a bladed glove. That man being Freddy Kruger, the series antagonist. So yes, Wes Craven, he had no intention of making a franchise out of this. He just wanted it to be a standalone film, no sequels at all. And that's how he wanted it. He also this was inspired by true events of some actual people that did die in their sleep due to nightmares and that sleep paralysis, I think. Anyway, A Nightmare on Elm Street. The original film starred John Saxon, Ronnie Blakely, Heather Langenkamp, Amanda Ways, Nick Corey, a very young Johnny Depp, and Robert Englund, who would become the series regular as Freddy Krueger. So this first film was seen as a dark, serious horror film And basically, no one knew what this guy Freddy Krueger was about or anything. But of course, in the first film, we didn't see much of Freddy, like close up till like towards the finale. All we knew is he had that bladed glove, the green and red striped jumper, the hat, and that burnt up, shriveled face that he is now known for. And of course, the first woman he kills in the film, well, the first main girl is Tina. Tina gets killed, and then next thing they all get picked off one by one. This film has some creative kills, and given that it's a dream state, that's another thing. Freddy, if he kills you in your dreams, he kills you for real. Because he's a dream demon. And in his human life, he was a convicted paedophile. He, abused children. He was a horrible man. And, later on in the series, we find out more and more about this guy, about his history. But, of course, in this, he's just seen as a nightmarish being. And he is played by the great Robert Englund. And Robert Englund, I have actually seen him in person at Comic-Con about 3 years ago now. I went for the first time ever, and Robert Englund was there. I was hoping to try and meet him and get an autograph, but, it was so hectic, I didn't get the chance to do so, and it was disappointing, but I did get to ask him a question at a Q&A he did. The question was a bit daft. It was, I have an itch on the back of my leg, do I have dry skin or an insect bite? He actually laughed and asked me if do I take hot baths or showers or something, and I told him yes, and he said it's probably dry skin. And of course, that is from Family Guy in an episode once when they were asking the questions to the panel of Star Trek The Next Generation. Back to the matter at hand. So, Nightmare on Elm Street, there's creative deaths in this. Johnny Depp's character gets swallowed up by a bed and then explodes like a volcano all over the bed. We get another kill that, we just get so many creative kills in that, but one of the most memorable kills for me was Johnny Depp's death. And of course, our final girl, Nancy Thompson, played by Heather Langenkamp, she, finds a way to beat Freddy, and the only way you can do that is to not fear him, because that's his strong point. He thrives and feasts on fear, and that's how she beats him in the end. That's how she stops the evil dream demon. And of course, Wes Craven wanted to give this a happy ending, but the film studio thought, no, we want a horror ending, a scary ending. And of course, they did go in that route, because the film did end where Nancy and all her friends are still alive. They all get in the car, till the car has a red, green striped rooftop, and her friends get dragged away. And, Nancy's mother gets dragged in through the door window because Freddy comes back. And it ends just where it has that little song that 1, 2, Freddy's coming for you. 3, 4, better lock your door. 5, 6, grab a crucifix. 7, 8, better stay up late. 9, 10, never sleep again. When I first heard that little chant, I did kind of find it unsettling and did creep me out. But now I'm immune to all that stuff. But yeah, Wes Craven, like I said, he was completely against the idea of a sequel for this, but they went ahead and did it anyway, and about a year later in 1985, they made A Nightmare on Elm Street Part 2, Freddy's Revenge. This had no involvement of Wes Craven. It was written by David Cheskin and directed by Jack Shoulder. And this film, it starred Mark Patton, Kim Myers, and of course Robert Englund, the only cast member from the first film to return. And of course, first of all, I wonder, right, Freddy's Revenge, what's he actually getting revenge on? Because this film, it's a completely different story. It focuses on Jesse, who is our protagonist for this, and they thought, hey, let's give it a bit of a a change for once. Let's make a final guy instead of a final girl. Of course, Jesse did have a love interest in this, Lisa, played by Kim Myers, and of course, Robert Englund as Freddy. He was more creepier, more evil than ever. If you can hear a noise, that is the computer. I have that on, and that because I'm doing all this on my phone. But yeah, watching that, the second film, yeah. We also find out a bit more about Freddy, where he works, what he did, and stuff. And of course, I forgot to mention in the Nightmare on Elm Street films, whenever you're in Freddy's world, you always know, because you're in that boiler house that he worked at, where he lurks around every corner and does that iconic noise with his claws. And of course, this film has been said to be one of the most homoerotic horrors, like Jeepers Creepers 2. I can see why. I mean, there is a part where there's a shower scene where the coach, the gym teacher, gets tied up in the showers and whipped naked before Freddy claws him to death, and that. But in fact, I think that's the only kind of homoerotic thing I can think of. I don't know why it is. It just said what it is. That's what it said when I was doing my research for this discussion. But yeah, that's apparently so. One thing I did find hilarious in this one was Jesse's screams when he woke up in the morning with a cold sweat and just did the most hilarious, girly scream ever. Yeah. Of course, again, this film didn't have a happy ending, because it ended where, again, Freddy was driving the bus, he was back in a nightmare, and yeah, it all went tits up from there. And yeah, that was Nightmare on Elm Street 2. Of course, when Wes Craven heard about the success these two films have had, now Nightmare on Elm Street 2 is, I would consider a standalone film. I mean, the only thing you need to get from the first film is just Freddy Kruger and that. So yeah, when Wes Craven heard about the success of these films, he actually got back in there. He actually, he was actually all on board for a third installment, and he actually did do it. Well, he wrote the screenplay for this and produced it. The third installment, Nightmare on Elm Street 3: Dream Warriors. Like I said, the screenplay was written by Wes Craven and Bruce Wagner, and it was also produced by Craven. This film was directed by Chuck Russell, and it had the return of Heather Langenkamp as Nancy, starring her in it. Patricia Arquette, of course, we all know her from Medium, and the sister of David Arquette. We also had a young Lawrence Fishburne, or back then as he was called, Larry Fishburne. We also had Priscilla Palto something, and Craig Wasson or whatever, and we had the return of series regular Robert Englund. Now in this third film, I think Freddy started to get more comedic, because that's what happened throughout the films as they went on. He got more wacky and witty and comedic, and yeah, I kind of do see that, because he did kind of stop being as serious, I think, in this one. In this one, we had, Nancy and her friends, fight Freddy in their dreams, using their power of fantasy to create their own laws and reality, and to fight Freddy. Of course, they put up a good fight, but of course, Freddy is the badass dream demon, and he always comes back. I mean, even at the end, when it made it look like the monster was gone, little model house of Nancy's home, Elm Street, lit up. It had a good soundtrack to it as well, that song that "We're the Dream Warriors," that was a good song. But yeah, I know I keep saying but yeah, I know. We just had so much I think this one, they had a lot of fun in this. I mean, there's so many. I mean, I have more. There's more memorable kills for me in this, such as the puppet string when Freddy gets the guy in his dreams and uses him as a string puppet for throwing him off the building, making it look like he killed himself. There's also another one where Freddy is possessing the TV in a girl's dream and rams her head into it, going, "Welcome to prime time, bitch." That's a memorable scene for me as well, and probably many others. So yeah, the third installment that was. So that was the third installment of the series. And you know, this I think was like probably the last one Craven had any involvement with before the seventh installment. So, you know, we had 1984, 85, not a Nightmare film in 86, we had one in 87, so 1988, the fourth installment came out, and that was A Nightmare on Elm Street 5, The Dream Master, directed by Rennie Harling, and starred, of course, Robert Englund, Lisa Wilcox, and Danny Hassel. This film, you know, I can't remember much about it. I think in this one it is the one where we see that kill where Freddy turns the girl into a cockroach and then crushes her like a bug. I don't know. I haven't seen this one as much as all the others. My memory on this one's quite poor. Yeah, I think they kill him. I think in this one Freddy's mother like gets him or something. I don't know, but I know in this one, I think it's this one where we find out he's the son of 100 maniacs, because we do find out about his mother, Amanda Kruger, who was a nun and got accidentally locked in an asylum with 100 maniacs that all gang raped her, and Freddy was conceived through that. Robert Englund had a role in that as one of the 100 maniacs, because I think he was playing Freddy's biological father and that. Yeah, I don't remember much about Nightmare 4, as I've only seen it, I'll be honest, I've only seen it once. I maybe should have given it a little bit of a rewatch, but yeah. But the story kind of continues in the next film, A Nightmare on Elm Street 5, The Dream Child, where it was about a year later, 1989. Yeah, 1989. Where Robert Englund and Lisa Wilcox returned. This time, our main protagonist was pregnant, and she had nightmares of it being Freddy, because Freddy wanted to get reborn through her, and of course she weren't standing for that. There is one, and also like in it, Freddy like kills all of her friends, and the more souls he kills and collects, the stronger he becomes, and he has a more of a stronger chance of being reborn. This film was directed by Stephen Hopkins, and it was, yeah, I told you all stars in it. But yes, there's one kill in it called where he's like stuffing a girl's mouth, going, "Don't even your mouth full of bon appetit, bitch. Bon appetit." Very comedic indeed. But again, for me, this is when the franchise started to get a little bit stale. I mean, Nightmare 4 and 5 are probably my least favourites. If I had to rank them up, I might actually do that at the end of this video. It would be very low on the list. So, you know, 1990, you know, Freddy was off screen. In 1991, which was the year I was born, we were given the 6th installment, Freddy's Dead, The Final Nightmare, which was directed, I think, yeah, written and directed by Rachel Taylor or something. I know her now from directing a couple of Doctor Who episodes, but yeah, she wrote and directed this one to my knowledge, and it starred, you know, Robert Englund, Lisa Zane, Cheyenne Greenbelt or something, Leslie Deanna or something, and Yapetz Cutter or something, I don't know. I'm butchering these names because they're daft.
So the sixth installment, you know, it was said to be the final one, and in this they find a way to kill Freddy, and the only way Freddy can die is at the hand of his own bloodline, which is through his daughter, who we find out in the film, Catherine Kruger. We find out that she, I can't remember who she was in it, but she turned out to be Freddy's daughter by blood, and she's the only one who can kill Freddy. And of course, we find out more about Freddy Krueger's origin and that, you know, and we also discover that he was, you know, as he was about to burn to death, he made a deal with some sperm-like nightmare serpents and joined with them, and that's how he got his dream powers and became the dream, you know, demon we all know. And the other way he could get killed is by his own bloodline, and of course, with it being Freddy's dead and the final nightmare, you know, she succeeds and Freddy is dead, and so is the franchise, and that was completely it from, you know, the whole Nightmare series, or so we thought. Now, in the 90s, we pretty much had enough of these 80s slashers and that. It was getting stale and boring, predictable, cliched, but in 1994, marking its 10th anniversary of the film, Wes Craven took the franchise and flipped it on its head and gave us the 7th installment, Wes Craven's New Nightmare. Set in our world, where A Nightmare on Elm Street is none other than just a film series. Robert Englund plays himself in it and Freddy, or the Nightmare entity or whatever. We also got Heather Langenkamp also back in it too, playing herself in this. We get Michael Hughes, John Saxon also back playing themselves. We get Wes Craven as well in this film playing himself. Basically, they're making another Nightmare film, and then we discover that there's this demonic entity that, you know, takes the shape of Freddy, or Freddy comes into our world because the power of the nightmares gets so strong he breaks out of the fictitious world and into our world, and yeah, he's back on a killing rampage. In this one, Freddy looks more demonic than burnt up. He wears a trench coat this time too, and he is just purely evil. And that's what it is. You know, and, you know, yes. Leave it to the great Wes Craven to think of a new way to reinvent the saga that he created. I changed seats. Anyway, that was pretty much it from the Nightmare series. Of course, in 1993, New Line Cinema, which was responsible for the Nightmare on Elm Street series, purchased the rights to Jason Voorhees and made a 9th installment to the Friday series. And of course, that was Jason Goes to Hell, the final Friday. And when, you know, that happened, the film ended where we see a bladed glove with a familiar looking red and green striped sleeve, you know, grab the mask and drag it down to hell. And yes, that set things in motion for a Nightmare on well, no, not just a Nightmare on Elm Street, but a Friday the 13th crossover. And that was a crossover which we were guaranteed, and it was a long wait. In fact, 10 years before, you know, it was so long the wait that, you know, each of them both slipped in another franchise. Jason slipped in, you know, Jason X, Freddy, New Nightmare. But in 2003, our patience was greatly rewarded. I was very young and didn't have no knowledge of these films when they came out. But I think it was the first real taste of Freddy and Jason that I ever got. And that was Freddy vs. Jason. Written by Damien Shannon and Mark Swift. Directed by Ronnie Yu. Starring Monica Keena, Kelly Rowland, Jason Ritter, Chris Marquardt or whatever. I'm not pronouncing that actor's name, I can't read it. And also starring Robert Englund and Ken Kersinger as Freddy and Jason, the two horror titans. Now, this film, so much more could have been done better with this, such as bringing back Kane Hodder, but hey, I think Ken Kersinger did a great job as Jason, but you know, for me, Robert Englund stole the show with his comedic performance in this as Freddy Krueger, and you know, that's what made the film great. I mean, this film was sort of like a Nightmare on Elm Street film with Jason in, but in the end it sort of became a Friday the 13th film with Freddy in it, because it went back and forth from Springwood to Camp Crystal Lake, and yeah, it was great. In fact, the fight scenes in this film are very cartoony. Even Robert Englund himself said that it was just like a cheap rip-off of Tom and Jerry, but looking at that, yeah, but I mean, these days I think Freddy vs. Jason is kind of, well, it's still good and funny. I mean, it could have been done a lot better, more experienced director of course, but yeah, I kind of think it's gone down as a cult classic. I'm not sure if it has, but it should be. And of course, I've been hooked on them two ever since, Freddy and Jason. And then of course the film ends where Freddy has been defeated and Jason rises out of the lake, until we see Freddy's head in Jason's hand, and Freddy gives a little wink to us before we hear Freddy's signature cackle, and it's a draw. You know, to make it fair and make like everyone feel like a winner, we had a draw. Of course, there is an alternate ending where Freddy does succeed or something, but yeah, I mean, this crossover was so built up that they even had a weigh-in, like two fighters as well, that you can see on the DVD extras of the film Freddy vs. Jason. So, Freddy vs. Jason was kind of the last, you know, installment within the original franchise, because in 2010 this film got the remake treatment. Yes, A Nightmare on Elm Street was remade in 2010. This film was directed by Samuel Bayer, and it starred Jackie Earle Haley as the Dream Demon Freddy Krueger. I know. It's also starred Kyle Gelner or something, Rooney Mara, Katie Cassidy, Thomas Dekker, and Kellen Lutz. Now, this was a remake that was poorly received, and yeah, of course, no one can play Freddy Krueger other than Robert Englund. But I thought, you know, this was a reboot, and they kind of wanted to see what another actor could kind of do with it. And we had Jackie Earle Haley. I mean, in this, we do get a bit of a backstory of Freddy, that he was a sweet, kind man, but deep down, you know, behind closed doors, he was a vile predator. And in this film, we do see some old and new elements mixed into this film, such as him getting burnt and everything, so let's stay true to it. Nancy this time was played by Rooney Mara, and of course, you know, in this, you know, Freddy's not as witty or wacky. We get a more serious, more intense, more fierce and evil, sinister looking role from Jackie Earle Haley as Freddy Krueger. And I mean, yeah, it's definitely not the worst remake out there, but it's not the best either. I mean, I like it, but if you ask me which is better, the original or the remake, it's got to be the original, because no one can play Krueger like Englund can. And I mean, you know, Freddy Krueger's his role, not no one else's. No one should take it away from him. But, you know, it was a new era. I guess with it being a remake, they had to get another actor, another take on the character. But still, yeah, I thought this was an okay remake. But, yeah, it was good, not brilliant. So, yeah, 2010, we had the Nightmare on Elm Street remake. Of course, the franchise has had, you know, other reincarnations, such as an anthology TV series called Freddy's Nightmares, A Nightmare on Elm Street the series, which ran from 1988 to 1990, and which was presented by Robert Englund. And of course, Robert Englund was in character as Freddy when he presented it. Each week it'd be a different story, in a half-hour episode. I don't know, I never really watched it, but I know it was a TV series, and it was created by Wes Craven too. Also, the Nightmare series, I've heard and that there's a reboot happening again, another remake. I don't know. I mean, obviously they're doing that whole try again. I think they're just doing it for money, and that. But yeah, my favourite Freddy Kruger is Robert Englund. My favourite film in the franchise, I would say, is the original. In fact, yeah, the ranking I said earlier. So if I had to rank these films up, I would put at number 9. I would probably put Nightmare on Elm Street 4, The Dream Master. Number 8, I would put Nightmare on Elm Street 5. Number 7, Nightmare on Elm Street 2010 Remake. Number 7, Freddy vs. Jason. Number 6, The Final Nightmare. Number 5, top 5 now, Nightmare 2. Number 4, hang on, how many films are there in this? I'm sorry, I'm just gonna, Elm Street, part 2, part 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Yeah, number 4, New Nightmare. Number 3, Freddy's Revenge. Number 2, Dream Warriors. And of course, number 1, it's got to be the original film, Nightmare on Elm Street. Well, I think that's pretty much it for this month's horror talk. I want to thank you all for watching. Thanks to the horror community for choosing this topic. Of course, if you like this video, be sure to give it a big thumbs up, share with your friends. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, and to hit that notification bell. What are your thoughts on the Nightmare films? Let me know down in the comments. All my social media links, my Facebook group, The Random Horror Madhouse, my Twitter, Instagram, all linked down below in the description. So be sure to do all that, and yep, until next time, don't have nightmares.